Welcome in the next episode of Talk Battersea. My next speaker, my next guest is James Dawe, and his life story and the work, it's quite really interesting with what he will share with you. So I will give you a word, but before that I would like to ask you for a favor. Do subscribe and share, comment or like, because that's the most biggest support you can give to the Talk Battersea channel. Let me give you the word and let me start with the first question. Where is your beginning?
Where is my beginning? Well, I was born in West Germany. My dad was a weatherman, still is, well, a retired weatherman. So yeah, we were on an airbase and I was born there. We lived there for the first 5 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What else? What else are you going to share about your background, about your early life?
That's a good question.
What about, you told me before that you've been quite moving in your childhood.
Yes, right. We moved a lot, yeah. So we were there for 5 years, then we moved over here, and we moved every sort of couple of years or so, changing a lot of schools.
I never asked you a question. Do you speak German?
I don't. I did German O-level, and all I can remember is one sentence. So,
which one is?
I can't cut my handkerchief.
Why that?
Ich kann nicht mein Taschentuch verschneiden. Yeah.
Why?
It's not all that helpful, really, in everyday life. Why do I know that? Because we followed these two characters through their life, and it was a boy and a girl, and they went for a walk, and he fell over and broke his arm, and she was trying to make a splint out of a stick and the strips of handkerchief tied to the arm tied to the stick, and she went, oh, ich kann nicht mein Taschentuch verschneiden, and we're all in hysterics in the classroom, and that's literally all I can remember. And I passed O-level German. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So you've been moving a lot with your family, and what have you been studying in the early life? Like, let's share your life between now your year 5 and 18.
Well, yeah, lots of different schools, lots of trying to make friends from scratch over and over again. Not much fun. And yeah, just the normal academic stuff. I quite enjoyed academia up to a point. I was, quite good at it, maths and English and stuff. But my interest in academia actually sort of diminished as I got older, from about 13, 14 to 18, unfortunately.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I just wasn't that interested in it. I don't know, it didn't really stimulate me. I just didn't feel like I was really doing myself justice for various reasons. I just found I was a teacher's nightmare. In the end, my primary motivation was how much I could make my mates laugh in the lessons. And I got some great comments on my reports in sort of age 17, 18. Well, my favourite is my English teacher said, when the immature clown in him finally dies, he might be able to do some half-decent work because he has some talent or something like that. But I talk to my mates now, they're all still my mates now, and when I told them that, they said, well, the immature clown still hasn't died. So.
And I think I'm grateful for that, because I can laugh even now.
Well, absolutely. And my main teacher, the guy who was overseeing my application to a university, just put, it is sad that he hasn't managed to grow up.
Did you ever feel that you grew up?
I'm not sure that I want to entirely. I think it's nice to have the option to be grown up if you want to, but I think it's also absolutely critical to be able to be a complete child if you want to.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, if you've got children for starters, if you can't be a child, they are not going to have much fun. If you're just an adult all the time. So yeah, being a child with my child has been, wonderful fun and a great release, sort of.
Let's come before that. So so it's 18, now we are around age 18. The clown is still there.
The clown is, I've got the full clown makeup most of the time, yeah.
What was after? So it's around the age when you went to university or
I went
something?
to university for 1 year.
1 year? Where and why?
Leeds. So everyone worked very hard for their A-levels, except me, because by then I just couldn't focus. I thought about it years later, and I think what it was maybe is by that point I just wanted to think about what I wanted to think about, which was very interesting to me. In fact, the most helpful thing that any woman has ever given me feedback on a date was I went on one date with this girl about 2015.
So let's say you're a straight male guy.
I am, as far as I know, yeah. And I went on a date, and she said to me, we only ever spent 2 hours together, never saw her again. And at the end of the 2 hours, she said, I get the impression that you're more interested by what goes on in your own head than the conversations you have with most people. And I just said to her, I just went, that is the most helpful thing that anyone said. I wrote it on my phone immediately. I said, thank you, that just explains so much. I was more interested in what was going on in my own head than revising for my A-levels. I was incredibly lucky. Various things happened, but I'll never forget the only girl that I spoke to at school, in the sixth form. We all went in, and this was before the internet obviously, and we all went in and all the results were up on the board. And I'll never forget, she came in and she just looked at my results and went, you lucky bastard. And I was completely, but in the end I couldn't really work at Leeds, so I left after a year. And
you share with me the things that you had a problem to talk to people.
Absolutely, women especially. I was pretty shy generally, or self-centered, or whatever you want to call it. But women, I didn't see a girl between the ages of 13 and between the ages of 12 and 16, so that's not the greatest training for the area. And yeah, so by 16, 17, 18, even 18, 19, you know, I'd have a few drinks, speak to a girl at university, and then the next day if I saw her, you know, out and about, I would just run away essentially.
So you had to have a drink to talk to the person?
Absolutely. To women.
To just women?
Yeah.
So you had no problem to talk to the guys or the friends or this kind of way?
Up to a point. I had some very close friends who are still my very close friends now, 35 years later. But other than them, yeah, there was a certain amount of, I don't know what you'd call it really, just finding it difficult to speak to people, yeah.
It's kind of as I told you, did you look up the Rajesh from the Big Bang Theory?
I didn't. I have seen it a few times, but I know the characters. But yeah, I've seen their sort of difficulties with life.
I remember the scene when somebody came to interview him home, and the only thing what he had at home was a rum cake. So he had to eat a rum cake just to talk to women.
Nice.
So this is the kind of thing, first funny thing what it appears in my mind when I heard it.
I like that, yeah.
But there was something behind also. So what was after that? So when you wouldn't be able to talk to women, but you didn't want to finish university. I quite understand that. I never finished university myself because I felt that things what people are teaching in university, it's the old school, and my mind works totally differently. So my mother finished with a red diploma, I think. So with the good thing, and she told me the same thing, that she had a problem sometimes to talk to professors, which one she had 10 years experience at work, and she was working studying business, and they told her, no, you have to do it by books.
Right.
So what was after the 1 year you decided that you don't want to study, you don't want to work in well, you share with me that you don't want to work in office, right?
Right. That was the other thing. So the extension of what I was just saying about I don't want to think about, I want to think about what I want to think about, not what you tell me to think about. So the thought of working in an office where you are told to think about insurance or law or marketing or all these things that I've absolutely no understanding of whatsoever was just, it literally seemed like hell to me to sit there and stare at a screen. I much prefer to be outside and walking and running and whatever. So my 20s, I mean, most of it I was unemployed. And yeah, so I worked for a year after I left Leeds, and then I didn't really want to study again, but didn't really know what else to do. So came down here and...
You mean to London?
To London, got a place doing psychology. So at least I was doing something I was vaguely interested in, because before at Leeds I'd done management studies, because the pressure of sort of get a good job, you know, management. I mean, looking back, it's hilarious, me trying to do management studies. And French, with a load of people who were French, which as far as I'm concerned was just totally cheating. So I just swerved most of those lectures. The conversation classes, I just didn't go to them because I was so petrified about...
Do you speak French?
No.
No.
No, my daughter asked me that the other day. She said, can you speak French? And I said, yes. And she said, well, what can you say in French about how you look after the environment? And I said, absolutely nothing. And I got an A level in French.
Again?
A B in French, A level. I've got that sort of mind where if I want to remember something, I will remember it. If I'm interested in it. If I'm not, it will just go in one ear and straight out the other.
That's interesting, because you could actually be the professor if you wanted, if you'd be interesting into, because you would just do things what they want, because you would remember, but you don't want that. That's quite interesting in you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been quite sort of, what's the word? I've sort of done things the way that I think they should be done, even though that has seemed like a complete disaster at points in my life. You know, there's been times obviously when I've thought, you've done this all completely wrong, you should have done this, this and this, and all your friends are way ahead of you and you're a failure and all the rest of it. But
what do you mean by that?
Well, if you're 30, all your friends are married or getting married, they've got great jobs, big houses, cars, blah blah blah. You're single, signing on, living in a shared flat with no prospect of doing anything whatsoever. I think it would be very hard not to think, to some degree, you've made a bit of a balls up of this.
I'm in that situation right now.
Fair play to you.
And I'm trying to do something.
Hang in there. I mean, I think you know, taking your own path is a tough gig. But if you, I don't really see you as like me when I was 30. You're, you know, out there and doing things and projects and this and all the rest of it. I just did nothing. Very
nothing.
little. I did very little. I walked around a lot. I went clubbing in the weekend with my mates. I read a lot of books. And that was about it.
So now we are in our 30s. Do you know something else about your previous life for the people? About your adulthood, like in your 20s, what was happening in your life?
My 20s was when I first sort of tried to, how would I put it, sort of look at why my life was not going that well. So I gave up drinking for many years, stopped at 22, went to AA a fair bit. I sort of had a mixed relationship with AA. I loved it for a period, then I wasn't sure about it, and then eventually I think it's a great place, don't get me wrong. I think it's a wonderful organisation, but I think it's, like everything, its strengths are also its weaknesses, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore, wasn't going anymore. And
so
then,
can you share that you become an alcoholic?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what an alcoholic is. I've never found a decent definition of what an alcoholic is. I think if you think you've got a problem with alcohol, then you probably are, you know, then it's probably good to address it. But in terms of a sort of global definition of, you know, the AA definition is something along the lines of it's costing you more than money, which is okay, but it's not a very scientific definition. It's not very, I mean, you know, decided by who, you know, and in what way exactly, and all the rest of it. So
I'm just asking this because if somebody's watching, for example, what do you recommend? What do we recommend a person to do if you feel that? If
you think you've got a drink problem, well, the first thing without question is
any kind of problem, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think the bottom line is ask for help. You know, most of us are programmed to. Many of us are programmed to try and deal with it ourselves, sort it out ourselves. I think if you ask for help, you will get help in the end. If you keep asking, if you keep exploring, you know, the internet is an incredible resource now. It wasn't around when I stopped drinking, but you know, there's all sorts of ways of doing everything. There's all sorts of ways of getting help. You can go to groups, you can go to 12-step fellowships, you can get therapy, you can read books, you can, you know, it's phenomenal. So if you seriously acknowledge to yourself that you've got a problem, that is the main thing, which many people never get to, tragically, I think. But if you do that, and then you think, right, well, I need to do something about this, and I need some help, I can't do it myself, because I've got blind spots, because if I could, I would have done it by now.
I just want to remind you guys, if you have any problem and you need to reach help, and under the episode with the Claire's, we have NHS link where is a serious kind of which help you need with the mental health problems, other things you can find the help, because you can help the one person only. We help somebody. So let's move, because right now we got in the really interesting way that your profession is you're a psychotherapist.
I am indeed.
So how did we get there? Let's talk about your work.
That's a very good question. So I was 29, signing on. I had been for 3 or 4 years. And that basically what happened was the Dawe people said, you know, you can't do this for much longer. Your benefits will be stopped fairly soon, which was terrifying to me at the time.
What benefits do you mean?
Well, I was getting unemployment benefit. So I thought, right, I've got to do something. I don't know, I've no idea what. But so the first thing I thought was, you've got to get some therapy, because I'd done a little bit when I was 27, maybe 6 or 8 weeks, and was partially honest, but not very. And 6 or 8 weeks is not going to do very much. So at 29, I went to get some therapy in this place, and I had the first kind of, I don't know, the sort of feelings you get occasionally in life where this is really significant for reasons I don't understand. This is really significant. So I turned up at the place. It's called the CCPE in Little Venice, Maida Vale, and it's a lovely building right on the canal. And I turned up for my interview to get a therapist. They basically interview you and then try and pair you off with someone suitable based on your issues, you know, whether you want a male or female therapist, what you can afford, your availability, blah blah blah. So I just turned up and I sat in the waiting room, and I just thought, this feels so right, just sitting in this waiting room. This is weird. I don't feel like this anywhere. And then the guy turned up and he took me to one of the rooms and he asked me all these questions, and I just thought, I love these questions. I love being asked these questions. I would love to ask someone these questions. So we did the interview, and then right at the end, I don't know where it came from, because I never asked questions like this back in the day. I said, do you run courses here by any chance? And he said, yes, we do. And I just, basically within a week, I had no money at all. The course cost a fortune. It was 20 grand for 4 or 5 years, plus the cost of therapy on top of that. So it was 22 grand, I think. So it was an absolute fortune. And I just thought, and I just signed up for it. I could pay for the first half of the first year on a credit card. And I just started doing therapy in September 2000, and I started the course in January 2001, when I turned 30, basically almost on the day that I turned 30, the course started. Yeah, I absolutely loved it, and my life changed a lot from then.
Can you explain us what is the difference between the life coach and the psychotherapist?
I'd like to, but to be honest, I don't really know that much about what a life coach is. I probably should, but...
To be honest, you should. I don't think so. But I like the question.
I think it's primarily focused on work stuff, isn't it? A life coach.
My life coach, it can be different. I think, as my mother explained it to me, the life coach is a person who is asking questions in the way as life coach is. I can't tell you more, because I have a life coach, and my life coach he never advises you. Life coach never advises you. He always give you and trying to give you right questions. So the training is about the questions, how to do questions, but you are finding your own answers.
Right. Well, yeah, it sounds quite similar.
And it's without the feelings mostly. my life coach right now has a new training which one evolved emotions, but life coach should have emotions.
Sorry, you're saying life coaching is not really about emotions?
Yes.
Well, there's the difference, because therapy is all about feelings. So I suppose my take on it would be that feelings are very important. So I'm glad I'm a psychotherapist. I don't know enough about life coaching, but I think the feelings are critical.
Tell me more about what is sorry, I got in my head life coach word right now. So what is a psychotherapist? What do you do with a client? Like,
well, my training was called person-centered psychotherapy, which is all about the warmth and depth of the relationship that you build up with the client. You know, the old school psychotherapy where you come in and lie on a couch and the person just sits there and scares the shite out of you basically by barely saying anything. I can't see how that's particularly helpful very often. So this is about, building a relationship, and within that relationship your relationship issues will come up. If you've got issues with intimacy or trust or care or fear or paranoia or whatever, they will come up in the therapeutic environment. And
I'm sorry, I was interrupting you now because we've been talking about the help. Can I share your website, for example, that people, if they will need help or something, they can reach out to you?
If you want to look me up, just Google James Dawe.
Guys, you will see here down the link where somewhere exactly.
James Dawe, Dawe, psychotherapy, and I'm on two Find a Therapist websites, one called Find a Therapist and the other one called Well Doing.
And so, I think we will share some contacts below in the details.
Happy days.
That if you will have a problem or you want a psychotherapist, I think is an incredible thing. I had a psychotherapist and it really helped me go through many things.
Right.
And I think because of that I am who I am. So I do recommend, I think persons should be born with psychotherapist.
Wouldn't it be great? Yeah.
As you should have your GP, you should have a straight away person who will help you.
You should have, at school, as far as I'm concerned, school should be half academia at the most, and then half group therapy, dealing with conflict resolution, how you're getting on with your peers, understanding, reading people, all that kind of stuff. I think, we'd all be so much better prepared for life if we hadn't all just been sitting there learning how many wives Henry VIII had and tripe like that. I have a slightly down attitude on academia. I know it's not as bad as that, but like you, it didn't suit me very much at all.
I think it's incredible because many people, even my previous guest, she's governess, and she graduated Cambridge, but she be lucky as well. So she got there. It's a really funny story, but that's not the point. The thing is that now I'm meeting, and I think when people are watching this right now, are people who think differently. Right. What I really right now like about my guests, and I'm really happy that you're sharing your story, because all the things how we see differently. Yeah. And even in Battersea we have so many schools. I think we see things how we want to do them. Tell me more even about your profession. I want to know some stories, for example, something, or what do you want to share more about you being a psychotherapist? How did it help you as a person?
Well, it's two ways. So, when you're working as a psychotherapist, if you're doing it properly, as far as I'm concerned, you're continually evolving yourself. So it's win-win. I mean, it's not about you, but if you're truly trying to connect with people and understand them and empathise with them, you can't fail to become more open, compassionate, understanding. No matter how much you might dislike somebody in a first session, once you know a bit more about their life and what happened to them and some of the factors that led them to be, and I don't often dislike people, I just like to stress that, but it does happen sometimes. You always feel far more compassion for them when you get to know them, hear their life story, understand what they've been through, and invariably you end up liking and admiring them, really. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a instructive, quite a magical thing, really. But yeah, I mean, it just suited me. I just loved it. it's quite daunting at the beginning when you first. I remember my first paid session. I was absolutely terrified. So I worked at the Priory a little bit, the Priory in Roehampton in the addiction unit. That was very interesting. I managed to get in there as a trainee sort of 6 months after I started the course.
You jumped to finish the
Oh,
interesting. Why have you been so terrified with your first day?
Well, just because it just seemed like such an important thing. I'd done plenty for free, you know, as part of your training you do. But the first paid one, I was so nervous. I was shaking. I could barely speak. I can remember it very clearly. It was about 2003, 4. But yeah, you know, if you think something's important, I suppose you're going to see the significance of it and you're going to be nervous. Maybe it's like your first appearance on stage when you're an actor or something, I don't know. But
so you had no nervous. So we can say that you have a 20 years of experience to be a psychotherapist.
Well, I'd say 30 because of self-help and all that kind of stuff, because I had 10 years of AA before that, which, you know, I think the programme of AA is a fabulous, fabulous thing. And if you can't afford therapy and you have any kind of dependence on any behaviour, gambling, drugs, sex, work, alcohol, go to your fellowship and do the 12 steps, because they're wonderful and beautiful and transformational, and yeah, I think they're fabulous.
So you got through your early life, now your work life. Do you want something else to share about your work life? Like for example, I know you do privately, so people can reach you in person, or that you can have online sessions if they work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, something I developed just before lockdown started was walking sessions. So even psychotherapy, I've often thought it needs a bit of bringing into the 21st century. I think a bit more flexibility. The boundaries are critically important, but they're very kind of universal. So I think there should be, you know, if you've got a bit of confidence as a therapist, you can be a little bit more adventurous with the boundaries. So I now do walking sessions, which round the park, or Green Park, Battersea Park, wherever, walking down the canal in Paddington. And with men especially, they really, really work, because men are many men are not that great at communicating their feelings. And if you actually are just doing some physical movement while you try and do it, you are loosened up and you will find it easier. So yeah, I think that is pretty much a male thing. I've only ever done a walking session with one female client, but yeah, so that's one way that I've sort of tried to evolve it a little bit, and I did it all through lockdown, and I'm still doing it now. It works well. So I offer new clients, you know, in person, walking, phone or video.
Do you want to share the price, for example? How much it cost one session, or do you have like?
I try and have a sliding scale, so depending on people's circumstances, it's a sliding scale, so that ideally those who can afford more pay more, and then I can work with a few more who
I think it's incredible, because I think it's really nice if the person can give more, that you can help somebody who doesn't have that much. So I think it's a very nice thing of you.
Thank you. I mean, ideally what I'd like to do is sit down with a new client and talk about their financial situation and come to an agreement about, you know, how much do you value this? But that's a little bit off in the future, but that would be my sort of dream. Someone told me that some people do it by percentage of annual salary, which would be great. But I'm not sure how that would work. If you're working with a trader on 2 million a year, are they really going to pay you 2,000 a session or something?
You never know. They might.
But well, I'd be delighted if they're up for it. But I'm not quite sure how it would work. But we'll see. I'll get there in the end.
Lovely. So we've got your early life, your academia, your work life, and let's come to the last subject. Why Battersea?
Well, I've always loved Battersea. I've never lived here before, but I've lived in Victoria, I've lived in Streatham and Earlsfield. And
when did you move into Battersea?
I moved into Battersea in October 2020, so middle of lockdown, middle of just middle of COVID, lockdown was just starting. The first few months were not hugely enjoyable, to be honest. It was like a sort of morgue. But and I was living over the other side of Battersea, which is nice, but I prefer this end.
Mm-hmm. We are around Battersea Square, just to let you know.
Indeed.
So tell me, for example, your favorite bar or maybe favorite restaurant, favorite outdoor place, and the most favorite whatever it is in Battersea. So let's have a favorite bar, restaurant, pub, whatever.
Well, I'm still getting to know the pubs and restaurants because, you know, obviously there was very little chance, and then when we moved over here, I've only been here for 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to say one of my favourite places, and I'm not just saying this, is your fine establishment. Great food, amazing coffee. So my wife says I don't drink coffee, but best coffee in London.
You're talking about Suzette like every single my guest.
Get yourself down there. And very friendly. I mean, I've never known a place in London ever, I've been here 30 years, where you sort of get to know a community like this. It's just never happened before.
I think
It's like a village.
Yeah, I think that Battersea is incredible in this, that the community is really strong here.
Yeah.
And I think we're meeting each other quite often. And that's how the things are starting creating. You know, Woodman, Cucumber,
Great.
Aspen, Prince Albert Pub, London House. We have so many.
Battersea Square is
Yes.
like just beautiful.
It's incredible, and you can have like a young person can have a nice kind of party life here. But as today I've been talking with one person that the scale of differences in Battersea is incredibly nice.
Yeah.
So, because you're exploring, do you have the favorite? So let's say your favorite is Suzette.
Okay.
If you agree, or do you have it?
I mean, I don't go out to eat that much, and out to bars and stuff. It's usually central, so I'm finding my way. But the Woodman is a great pub. Basically, I love the river. I mean, it's 30 seconds away. I think that bit around, it's called St Mary's, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, St Mary's the church. Yeah.
And I love I love William Blake and his writing and poetry and stuff, and the fact that he got married in that church 220 years ago, whatever it is, just blows my mind. I was there on Saturday, and there was a wedding, beautiful, and I just thought, wow, you know, this is vaguely like it would have been how it was for him. You do a 360 round there, nothing else would have been that's there now would have been there then. Just that church, and it's just, I think it's just gorgeous. So I walk up and down the river a lot. I run a lot. I'm in Battersea Park. Battersea Park's probably my favourite place. It's just, it will never tire. I went there the first time, you know, a year after I moved to London, and 30 years later, it's still magical.
I think it's magical from the time when Queen Victoria opened the place.
Absolutely.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And let's do the last question. What is your totally favorite, like the spot, or what is your favorite thing about Battersea? It can be anything.
Well, I'd probably say the church and the river and the park. I've probably said it. I love the fact that I'm beginning to say hi to people as I wander up and down out here. You and your first guest, I've met him the other day.
Julian.
Yeah, sitting outside, that was lovely. But yeah, I think the feeling that it's quite villagey, but you're half an hour walk from Victoria or Sloane Square or whatever. I love that, and the nature of it, the river and the scenery and the park, bridges, it's a beautiful spot.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think we got all the subjects done for this sharing your life story.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for watching, guys.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure we're going to do more videos with James. For example, one of the videos we will do is about the psychotherapy and how the psychotherapy works. And you'll be able to see it if you subscribe. And I'm sure that you will be able to see it on his website after. So, thank you so much. Subscribe, share, comment and like. And thank you, James, for being one of my guests and talk about
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching.